So how does a teenage drug kingpin buying a $10,000 metaphorical snake explain the structural collapse of modern television writing?
Or, how does a character deleting a single social media account
Ah.
trigger an entire fandom to anticipate just like a biblical level natural disaster?
Right, exactly. Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're immersing ourselves in a highly active, real-time digital water cooler to answer those exact questions.
And it is a messy one today.
Oh, it's so messy. Our source material is the massive Reddit post-episode discussion thread for Season 3, Episode 6 of Euphoria.
Yeah, the episode titled Stand Still and See.
Right, it aired on May 17th, 2026, and the temperature in this specific thread is, well, it's absolutely boiling.
It's a genuinely fascinating sociological artifact, really. Like, we aren't just looking at a collection of casual weekend reviews here.
No, not at all.
We're analyzing a community of highly engaged, intensely invested viewers who are attempting to make sense of a narrative that is aggressively defying, and in some cases, I'd say openly mocking their expectations.
Yeah, and that is the core of our mission today. We aren't here to just recap what happened in an hour of television.
Right, anyone can do a recap.
Exactly. By analyzing these specific fan reactions, their emerging theories, and honestly their profound structural frustrations, we're going to understand how audiences process narrative subversion.
And character regression.
Yes, character regression and just massive tonal shifts in media they are deeply tethered to. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
And just a quick reminder before we jump into the chaos, if you love dissecting pop culture like this, getting past the surface layer and down to the absolute bedrock of complex sources, you should definitely subscribe for more deep dive content so you never miss one of these explorations.
It really is a vital exercise for any consumer of media, I think.
Oh, 100%.
Because the way an audience reacts to a piece of art often reveals far more about our collective psychology, our cultural conditioning, and our unspoken rules of storytelling than the art itself even does.
I totally agree. And I think to really grasp the sheer psychological whiplash of this specific discussion thread, we have to start where the episode started.
The opening 20 minutes.
The opening 20 minutes. Because this sequence left the entire subreddit completely irrevocably devastated.
Oh, yeah. The fans were in mourning.
They really were. We're looking at the dynamic between Preston, Alamo, and Alamo's mom.
Right.
And going into this hour, the fandom had a very specific, unified expectation. Users like Joey Mims and Sintashit pointed out that Preston was introduced to be Alamo's stepdad.
And we know the architecture of this show.
We do. When a new adult male enters the picture, especially in a position of domestic authority, the audience instantly braces for impact.
They're thoroughly conditioned to do so. I mean, in this specific universe, the abusive stepfather trope is basically a foundational pillar.
Yeah, it's like a guaranteed plot line.
Right. So the audience is essentially watching Preston through a lens of defensive pessimism. They're waiting for the mask to slip.
Just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Exactly. They are anticipating the exact moment the marriage certificate is signed and he reveals his true monstrous nature, because that is the established rhythm of this dark coming-of-age ecosystem.
Yes.
Trauma almost exclusively flows downhill here. It originates with damaged adults and cascades onto vulnerable teenagers.
Right, the adults are always the source of the rot. User SnooGadgets458 literally stated they were just watching the clock, waiting for Preston to fall into that exact predatory trope.
But then the show pulls the rug out.
A massive rug pull. And the twist isn't that Preston is a monster. The twist is that Preston is just a genuinely good, earnest guy.
Which is so rare for this show.
It's unheard of. He authentically loved Alamo. He authentically loved Alamo's mom. He was exactly who he presented himself to be without an ounce of hidden malice.
Which ironically makes his character the most shocking anomaly of the entire season.
Yeah, it really does.
In a narrative built on deceit and generational trauma, pure innocence is basically the ultimate subversion.
It's the ultimate bait and switch. Because instead of Preston being the villain, Alamo is the one who completely annihilates him.
And he does it so coldly.
So coldly. Alamo conned Preston out of his life savings. He orchestrated a robbery that didn't just inconvenience this man, it financially and emotionally liquidated him.
It ruined his life in an afternoon.
Literally. I was trying to conceptualize how to describe this specific dynamic, and I keep coming back to a parasitic wasp.
Okay.
You know the ones that lay their eggs inside a living host like a caterpillar?
Ah, right. The Ichneumonidae family, yes. The biological mechanism there is pretty horrifying.
It's terrifying. The caterpillar goes about its life, maintaining its habitat, completely unaware that it is being hollowed out from the inside by something it is actively incubating and protecting.
That's a very apt metaphor.
That's the exact mechanism of what Alamo did to Preston. It wasn't just a street-level robbery. It was an intimate structural violation of a family unit.
He weaponized the guy's own empathy.
Exactly. Alamo weaponized Preston's genuine love and paternal instinct to gut him. And there is a specific scene that the fans are just agonizing over.
The scene in the living room, right?
Yes. The emotional climax of that opening sequence. Preston is on the floor, weeping, pleading with the police or whoever will listen that he can, quote, fix it.
It's so hard to watch.
It is, and the absolute tragedy is that he has no idea that Alamo, the very kid he is still trying to protect in that exact moment, is the architect of his destruction.
It's a profound manipulation of dramatic irony. The audience holds the agonizing knowledge of Alamo's guilt, while Preston remains totally blinded by his own goodness.
Yeah, user Lovelichin Pink described it as a foul betrayal.
Which it absolutely is.
And Joey Mims claimed they cared more about Preston after knowing him for 20 short minutes than they cared about most of the legacy main characters this season.
I mean, that's a testament to the performance, but also the writing of that specific arc.
But here's where I want to challenge the construction of this sequence. Because does introducing a genuinely good character just to completely destroy them in 20 minutes feel like cheap emotional manipulation?
That's a fair question.
Because to me, it feels like a manufactured gut punch designed just to generate shock value rather than earned storytelling.
Well, I would actually counter that it is highly effective storytelling, primarily because it violently disrupts the audience's conditioned biases.
Okay, how so?
As we established, the viewer expects trauma to flow from the adult to the child. By inverting that flow, by making the teenager the apex predator and the adult the helpless prey, the narrative completely destabilizes the viewer's moral compass.
So it's forcing a new perspective.
Exactly. It forces the audience to confront a terrifying reality within the show's universe. Cruelty isn't just inherited by the younger generation. It can be generated, innovated, and perfected by them independently.
Wow. Okay, so you're saying the speed of the destruction, that 20-minute liquidation, is the point. It highlights the efficiency of Alamo's sociopathy.
Precisely. It breaks the established rules of engagement. You don't know how to orient yourself emotionally when the expected victim becomes the mastermind.
Right.
That disruption is why users found this to be the most compelling arc of the season so far. It serves as a stark psychological primer. It cements Alamo as a cold, clinical, highly calculating operator.
Which makes his behavior in the second half of the episode so utterly baffling.
Oh, it's a complete 180.
The tonal shift is severe enough to give you whiplash, because the cold, calculating mastermind we just discussed completely evaporates, and we get this bizarre, surreal, almost farcical version of Alamo during his confrontation with Rue.
Yeah, that scene was a lot.
User Your Mindex pointed out the sheer absurdity of this scene. Rue is brought into this supposedly terrifying, high-stakes criminal underworld environment facing down Alamo. And what is his intimidation tactic?
A polo mallet.
He gently nudges her with a polo mallet.
A piece of equestrian sports equipment in a narcotics den. It is wildly disorienting visual storytelling.
It is, and Rue's reaction is just flawless. She doesn't scream, she doesn't beg for her life.
She's just confused.
Yeah, she looks at this teenager holding a polo mallet, completely bewildered, and asks, "Are you a Nazi now?"
Such a great line.
User Yermindes noted that pure confusion just completely overtook Rue's fear in that moment, and frankly, it overtook the audience's fear, too.
Right, because how are you supposed to react to that?
Exactly. We are sitting there trying to process the lethal threat of this criminal empire, and he's poking people like he's at a country club.
It forces a severe cognitive dissonance upon the viewer. The show is deliberately injecting absurdist, almost a Coen Brothers level dark comedy into a high-stakes dramatic thriller.
The Coen Brothers comparison is really interesting.
Well, if you analyze films like Fargo or No Country for Old Men, the violence is often sudden and extreme, but the perpetrators are deeply idiosyncratic, sometimes to the point of outright comedy.
Right, like the haircut in No Country for Old Men.
Exactly. The dread comes from their unpredictability.
But the unpredictability here feels like it lacks internal logic. Like,
Yeah.
user Big Booty Boy 420 broke down Alamo's contradictory gangster rules, and it reads like a comedy sketch.
Rules are incredibly inconsistent.
Right. Apparently, Alamo is furious that a character named Big Eddie gave up some drugs and money stored in a safe instead of, and this is a direct quote, being shot in the balls.
Which is an insane expectation for an employee.
Beyond insane. Furthermore, Alamo had his own bouncer killed just for letting Rue's group in the door instead of taking a bullet to the face.
So he is demanding absolute suicidal loyalty.
Yes.
He operates on this hyper-violent, unforgiving underworld code where death is mathematically preferable to the slightest operational compromise.
That's the precedent he sets. But then, in the very next breath, despite this ruthless blood in, blood out code of conduct, Alamo inexplicably spends $10,000 on a snake.
Oh, the snake.
Why? According to him, quote, because it was a metaphor.
$10,000 of illicit capital for a living metaphor while executing minimum wage employees for not sacrificing their lives at the front door. The juxtaposition is staggering.
Make it make sense. And it doesn't stop there. Right in the middle of this high-stakes, metaphorical, hyper-violent chaos, the character of Lori appears at Alamo's place.
Oh, Lori. This was brilliant.
The fans were obsessing over her wardrobe. Users, or local indie girl and Sima Disco, were dissecting the fact that Lori, this terrifying human trafficking drug lord, is wearing a sweatshirt that looks like, as they put it, some bullshit from TJ Maxx.
That is a masterclass in costume design. It is the visual embodiment of the banality of evil.
Yes. She looks like she's going to grab a heavily modified iced coffee and browse a clearance rack, not broker a narcotic empire.
Her aesthetic is aggressively mundane.
It really is. I want you, the listener, to think about the mechanics of this scene for a second. Think about a time in your own life when you were in a situation that was supposed to be incredibly tense or serious.
Like a high-stakes meeting or a volatile argument.
Yeah, exactly. And then something so bizarre or wildly out of context happened that your brain just short-circuited. Your fight or flight response didn't trigger. It was just completely hijacked by unfiltered bewilderment.
It is a documented psychological response. When the human brain cannot accurately categorize a threat because the threat is behaving nonsensically, the fear response is temporarily paralyzed by confusion.
Wow, paralyzed by confusion.
Yeah, the writers are weaponizing that exact cognitive dissonance to keep the audience off balance.
That makes so much sense.
Rue's reaction mirrors the audience's exact emotional state. We don't know whether to be terrified of Alamo's capacity for violence or to laugh at his polo mallet and his expensive snake.
It's mesmerizing because it is so deeply weird. But while Rue is navigating surreal gangsters and TJ Maxx kingpins, the legacy characters are making moves that have the fan base predicting absolute, unmitigated disaster.
The impending doom.
And that brings us to Cassie. User WillowBillow23 drops a massive plot observation in the thread. Cassie has deleted her OnlyFans account.
Now, if we apply real-world logic to this action, an individual choosing to close an adult content account and step away from massive public exposure would generally be interpreted as a step toward establishing boundaries.
Right, a positive thing.
It might be viewed as a healthy reclamation of privacy.
But the Reddit thread proves this is not the real world. The immediate, unanimous reaction from the fandom isn't applause for her mental health. It is sheer apocalyptic panic.
Absolute panic.
The consensus across the board is Maddie is going to lose IT. User ZealousyDealCrow737 laid out the grim mathematics of this decision. Because Cassie deleted the account, she's going to lose her acting job, and inevitably she will end up at a place called the Silver Slipper.
The Silver Slipper.
Based on the terrified context clues in the thread, the Silver Slipper is the absolute bottom of the barrel. It is the darkest possible timeline.
It operates as a narrative gravity well.
Oh, gravity well. I like that.
Yeah, it represents the ultimate, inescapable destination at the end of a long sequence of compounding bad choices.
But I look at this fan reaction and I see a massive irony. We have a character in Cassie who is pathologically desperate for validation.
Desperate is an understatement.
Right. She finally makes a move that cuts off that toxic pipeline of exposure, and the fans view it as a catastrophic error that will land her in a vastly more exploitative situation.
It is ironic, yes.
I have to wonder, are the fans actually rooting for Cassie to fail at this point? Or are they just reading the tea leaves of a tragically written character and acknowledging that the showrunner will simply never allow her to win?
The latter, Without question, the audience isn't actively rooting for her demise. They are simply recognizing the mechanics of the Cassie cycle.
The Cassie cycle.
If you trace her character's history, she does not possess the capacity to gently course correct.
Oh.
Every choice she makes is a violent pendulum swing of extremes.
Oh, completely.
She swings from extreme codependency to extreme rebellion. She pivots from seeking pure, idealized romantic love to seeking purely transactional, anonymous validation. There is no middle ground.
It's always 0 to 100 and usually directly into a brick wall.
Exactly. So when she deletes the account, the fans understand she hasn't suddenly achieved inner peace. She has merely triggered the next extreme swing of the pendulum.
And the kinetic energy of that swing is going to collide directly with Maddie.
The anticipation of Maddie's reaction is incredible.
The fans don't talk about her like a teenage girl. They treat her like a Category 5 hurricane waiting to make landfall.
Because within the ecosystem of this narrative, Maddie has transcended her humanity to become a force of nature.
That's a great way to put it.
She functions as the physical embodiment of the consequences of Cassie's actions. The fandom's anticipation of Maddie losing it is the anticipation of a karmic reckoning.
Right.
Cassie's attempt to erase her digital footprint is viewed as futile because Maddie is the manifestation of her past mistakes coming to collect the debt.
It's like watching a horror movie where the protagonist runs upstairs instead of out the front door.
Exactly like that.
You aren't rooting for the killer to get them, but you know exactly what is going to happen because you understand the rules of the genre. Cassie just ran upstairs.
That is a highly accurate framing. The fans are grieving the tragic trajectory that has been structurally locked in for her.
But Cassie isn't the only character whose choices are completely alienating the audience. In fact, there is a fan favorite who has seemingly shattered her relationship with the viewers entirely this season.
This is where the thread gets really angry.
We have to dive into the absolute vitriol aimed at Jules and the fractured dynamic with Rue.
The collapse of the Jules and Rue dynamic is perhaps the most contentious element of the current season.
The thread practically caught fire over a highly controversial scene where Jules physically slaps Rue.
Yeah, that was a shocking moment.
The audience reaction was intensely visceral and highly protective of Rue. One user, Missy Darling23, bluntly declared that they would, quote, slap Jules' ass right TF back.
That level of aggressive, defensive posturing from the audience indicates a profound fracture in their empathy for Jules.
It's not just a fracture. The bond feels completely severed. User Class Act 7 described Jules as being absolutely freaking insufferable this season.
Insufferable is the word of the week for her.
And Alex10719 criticized her horrible character development, genuinely doubting that the writers possessed the capability to wrap up her storyline in any satisfying way with only 2 episodes remaining.
This reaction opens up a crucial dialogue about the nature of serialized television and parasocial betrayal.
Parasocial betrayal, okay. Break that down.
Jules, for a very long time, served as the ethereal, optimistic counterweight to the show's suffocating darkness. She was the heart.
She was the beacon of light. And now she's physically striking the protagonist.
Right. When a showrunner takes a beloved foundational character and initiates a severe regression, having them make cruel, violent, or deeply uncharacteristic choices, they are actively testing the tensile strength of the audience's affection.
Seeing how far they can push it.
Exactly. If that regression feels unearned by the plot, or if it feels like drama manufactured merely for shock value, the psychological response from the viewer shifts.
They turn on the character?
They do, but it goes deeper. The audience doesn't just get angry at the character within the fiction, they become antagonistic toward the writing itself. They feel their emotional investment has been betrayed.
And when they feel betrayed by the writing, their criticism morphs. This was the most fascinating psychological tell in the entire thread for me.
The physical critiques.
Yes. The fans are so exhausted and frustrated with Jules' narrative arc that they have stopped critiquing her decisions and have started zeroing in on hyper-specific physical quirks of the actor's performance.
It's a very common phenomenon, actually.
It's wild. User Solyoji pointed out that Jules is, quote, talking out of the side of her mouth again, complaining that it genuinely sounds like the actor has food in her mouth during intense scenes.
It's so specific.
And hundreds of people upvoted that specific complaint. It feels so incredibly petty.
It appears petty on the surface, but psychologically, it is a textbook symptom of hyper-scrutiny born from displaced frustration.
Displaced frustration.
Think about the mechanics of a failing real-world relationship.
Oh, like when you're fighting with a roommate and suddenly the way they breathe while chewing their cereal makes you want to throw a chair through a window.
Exactly.
It has absolutely nothing to do with the cereal.
Precisely. When we lose our fundamental grace for someone, or in this case, a character's narrative direction, we lose our tolerance for their idiosyncrasies.
That makes perfect sense.
What the audience might have previously accepted as a unique stylistic acting choice, or a charming quirk in Season 1, suddenly mutates into an irritating physical manifestation of bad writing in Season 3.
Wow.
The critique of her talking out of the side of her mouth is a proxy war. They are attacking the physical performance because the narrative has failed to hold their sympathetic attention.
They don't trust the writers to fix the character's internal logic, so they are just actively repulsed by her external presence on the screen.
It is a brutal place for a primary character to end up.
It really is. But if Jules is suffering from a regression in character development, we have to talk about a major legacy character who has been stripped of his narrative utility entirely.
Oh boy, here we go.
Let's look at the absolute marginalization of Nate Jacobs.
The former apex predator of the series.
Or at least he used to be. The Reddit thread reads like an autopsy report for Nate's relevance. User Camilla Jardin made an observation that deeply resonated with the community.
What did they say?
They went out of their way to praise actor Jacob Elordi's performance, acknowledging he is doing the best he can, but they noted that Nate's scenes just completely, quote, suck the air out of the narrative.
He has transitioned from the primary engine of conflict to a narrative black hole.
It's true. User Bizzard41 called his current iteration completely one-dimensional. And what's wild is that Nate, constantly getting physically beaten up, has devolved into a literal running gag.
A running gag in a prestige drama.
Right. User Paperskirl compared his scenes to Family Guy cutaway gags. That is a staggering insult.
It's brutal.
Fans are openly mocking the logic of his existence. User Actual Return 9403 asked, why has Nate not bought a weapon yet, like DUDE?
I mean, it's a logical question. He gets beat up every week.
He mounts zero defense. To which user Bongwater Bimbo 420 replied with the most devastatingly funny, deadpan explanation. He's on an SSRI now.
The proposition that modern antidepressants have entirely neutralized the show's primary antagonist is a very sharp, very dark piece of cultural commentary by the fandom.
It is brilliant, and it perfectly highlights how far his stock has plummeted. Fans are pointing out that Faye, a tangential side character whose entire persona is just blank staring, has a vastly superior narrative arc.
Faye is great, though.
She is. User Space Cases quoted Faye simply replying, not really, to a highly serious question. And user Risky Fourth the Biscuit swore that Faye's flat effect provides a more meaningful storyline than anything Nate is doing this season.
The contrast reveals a massive structural flaw in the season's pacing.
I look at Nate's current arc, and I think of an architectural load-bearing wall being removed from a house. But the builders forgot to put anything in its place to hold up the roof.
That's a strong visual.
For 2 seasons, he was the looming threat. He was the embodiment of toxic masculinity, blackmail, and physical dominance. Now, he's a punching bag.
A literal punching bag.
I firmly believe the writers are purposefully castrating him narratively to punish the character for his past sins. But in doing so, they are actively destroying the pacing of their own show.
I would push back slightly on the idea that they are purposefully destroying the pacing, though I agree the narrative emasculation is a deliberate choice.
Okay, what do you think they're doing?
We are witnessing a radical, almost clinical deconstruction of the toxic antagonist. By medicating him, putting the alpha villain on SSRIs, the show is chemically neutralizing his rage.
Right.
His rage was his primary weapon. It was the engine that drove the melodrama.
They essentially sedated the plot.
They did. Furthermore, by subjecting him to repeated, almost slapstick physical beatings without retaliation, they're systematically dismantling the myth of his physical dominance.
Tearing down the monument.
Exactly. The writers are tearing down the monument of toxic masculinity they spent 2 seasons meticulously building.
But the audience isn't enjoying the demolition.
Because deconstruction is an intellectual exercise, whereas television drama requires kinetic momentum.
That's a great distinction.
A defanged, sedated villain is no longer an active participant in the story. He becomes a passive prop. He exists in a state of perpetual, stagnant punishment.
Yeah, he's just stuck there.
When a side character like Faye, whose primary contribution to a scene is apathetic silence, feels more vital to the story than your former main antagonist, you have completely lost control of your narrative stakes.
The load-bearing wall is gone, and the roof is caving in on his scenes. It is fascinating how a character can evolve from being the most terrifying presence on television to being the designated bathroom break for the audience.
It's quite the fall from grace.
But while Nate's storyline is flatlining, there is one genuine threat moving very quietly in the background. Which brings us to the show's meta-commentary, missing stars, and some heavy-handed symbolism.
The architecture of the suspense versus the architecture of the aesthetic.
Precisely. Let's start with the suspense. There is a character named Bishop, and his extremely subtle movements in this episode sparked a major investigative debate in the thread.
People were really parsing the dialogue for this one.
Oh, line by line. Users like Expert Barnacle 1182 and Upstairs Chicken 592 were parsing through the dialogue, trying to deduce if Bishop actually spoke to Leslie Rue's mother or if he was merely bluffing to extract information.
What was the fandom's ultimate consensus on his movements?
The overwhelming consensus is that he definitely made contact. He was quietly sniffing around, trying to verify if Rue has been in communication with her family lately.
So he's circling.
Yes. It's this very understated, ominous maneuvering. It feels like a powder keg waiting for a spark, especially compared to the polo mallet absurdity we discussed earlier.
It provides a necessary, grounded undercurrent of genuine suspense. It is a classic thriller mechanic operating beneath the surrealism.
But while Bishop is generating actual plot tension, the fans are screaming about someone who is conspicuously absent.
Ah, yes.
Where is Natasha Lyonne?
A phantom guest star.
A phantom guest star. The fans are furious, confused, and highly amused all at once. User Pretty Little Edding demanded to know how she possibly fits into the remaining narrative real estate.
There's just no room left.
None. User Eglo admitted they completely forgot she was even supposed to be in this season, joking that the creators are just going to clumsily stuff her into the 93-minute finale for a single meaningless second.
This highlights the distinct danger of stunt casting in a serialized narrative.
It really backfired here.
When you promise an audience a major recognizable talent and then withhold their appearance, their absence generates more noise than the presence of the characters actually on screen.
It becomes a distraction.
Exactly. The anticipation of the cameo begins to cannibalize the existing story.
It's like promising someone a massive, choreographed fireworks finale and then handing them a single damp sparkler at the end of the night.
A damp sparkler. That's good.
But this frustration with Natasha Lyonne's absence bleeds directly into a much larger structural frustration with the show's creator, Sam Levinson.
When an audience begins explicitly parodying the creator, you gain the most revealing insights into the show's structural failings.
Oh, the parody was brutal. User Aramjal posted this hilarious mock transcript of Sam Levinson in a writer's pitch meeting for Season 3. I have to read it.
I do.
They wrote, "So you see, the scene with the burning bush in the desert is actually a reference to the part of the Bible with the burning bush in the desert. It's a clever metaphor for the Bible."
That is a remarkably sharp critique of his transition from allegory to literalism.
It is a devastating roast of his writing style. They are calling him out for presenting heavy-handed, literal religious iconography and demanding the audience treat it as profound, nuanced symbolism.
It's not nuanced if you just put the actual object on screen.
Yeah.
If we synthesize these three disparate elements, Bishop's quiet, effective menace, Natasha Lyonne's glaring, distracting absence, and the fandom's parody of Levinson's on-the-nose metaphors, what we are looking at is a story about a show collapsing under the weight of its own ambition.
How does that specific collapse happen, like mechanically?
Well, the show is attempting to juggle too many massive, conflicting conceptual elements. It is taking huge thematic swings with drug empires, it is incorporating highly publicized celebrity cameos, and it is relying on these incredibly heavy, literal religious metaphors like burning bushes.
It's just too much.
Beneath the immense weight of all that aesthetic posturing, the actual grounded plot threads are suffocating.
The foundational storytelling gets crushed.
Exactly. The quiet, simmering tension of Bishop investigating Rue's mother is a compelling, character-driven narrative. But it gets lost.
It gets completely buried.
It gets drowned out by the noise of $10,000 metaphorical snakes and heavy-handed biblical references. The audience's parody of the creator is a symptom of deep narrative exhaustion.
Narrative exhaustion. I love that term.
They do not want a clever metaphor for the Bible. They want to know the tangible consequences of Bishop's actions. They want narrative payoff, not just visual poetry.
They want the actual meat and potatoes of the plot, and they are exhausted by being handed elaborate, inedible garnishes.
Perfectly said.
And I just have to pause here, to you listening. This specific level of meta-analysis, peeling back the layers of a fandom's sarcastic jokes to diagnose the structural integrity of a multi-million-dollar television production, this is exactly why you need to hit that subscribe button for more deep dive content.
It's what we do.
We do not just read the comments, we translate the underlying psychology of those comments to understand the evolving art of storytelling.
It is a necessary translation.
All right.
The modern television audience is incredibly perceptive regarding structural flaws. They simply choose to express their critiques through the language of memes, sarcasm, and hyper-specific complaints.
They absolutely do. And what an incredible journey through the collective, frustrated mind of this fandom we have taken today. We have covered a massive amount of psychological ground.
It has been a dense and revealing exploration.
We started by mourning the tragic, highly efficient 20-minute liquidation of Preston, the genuinely good man who got hollowed out by the parasitic wasp that is his stepson.
R.I.P. Preston.
Truly. We tried to decipher the cognitive dissonance of a polo mallet-wielding teenage gangster who demands suicidal loyalty but spends 10 grand on a metaphorical snake, all while Lori commands a drug empire in a clearance rack TJ Maxx sweatshirt.
Iconic.
We analyzed the inescapable gravity of the Cassie cycle, exploring how the deletion of a single OnlyFans account triggered the fandom to brace for the hurricane-force reckoning of Maddie's impending wrath.
The silver slipper awaits.
It does. We dissected the complete fracture of the Jules and Rue dynamic, uncovering how a parasocial betrayal and bad character development leads to fans projecting their narrative rage onto how an actor chews their food.
And the proxy war.
We watched the terrifying architectural collapse of Nate Jacobs as he deflated into a punchline on SSRIs. And finally, we waited for the phantom appearance of Natasha Lyonne while dodging literal burning bushes in the desert.
It is, as we noted, a highly complex, murky diagnostic landscape of audience expectations versus creator execution.
It really is. The diagnostic machine is smoking, and we are just trying to read the shadows on the wall.
Which leaves us with a critical, lingering question for you to consider.
Lay it on them.
As you digest the sheer volume of psychological friction we've discussed today, ask yourself this. When we dedicate our time to watching a show built entirely on the foundation of trauma, destructive cycles, and the profoundly poor decisions of its characters, at what point does our intense frustration with their lack of growth say more about our own desire for control than it does about the quality of the writing?
Yeah, wow.
Are we truly tuning in because we want to see these characters heal, or are we secretly addicted to watching them crash?
Yeah. Damn, that is the question that stays with you, isn't it? Are we addicted to the crash? Thank you for wading into these murky, fascinating waters with us today. We will be back soon with another deep dive into your sources. Until then, keep asking the hard questions, and we will see you next time.